Hi, it's Craig Cameron here, and welcome everybody to the 50-year anniversary celebration of Ross Erickson's life at Trobe University Hockey Club. I'm joined by Peter Shackleton here at Ross's home, and we plan to uncover some old stories and happy memories from what is a sensational contribution from one person to our hockey club. Ross, thanks for lunch, mate. Now, before you announce the top 10 of the 50 greatest ever players, it will look a bit awkward if you put Peter and I at 1 and 2 and Will Erickson at number 3. So before we get to that...
Ross, do you want to tell us about when you joined the club back in 1972, what it was like?
Did everybody have like a bushranger beard and short shorts and flowers in their hair?
They were coming that way, Craig. In 72 was a year after the moratoriums. During the moratoriums, the political situation, the university were against conscription. University students in the main, not necessarily the staff. And to the point where the state government sent the police in to raid campus. Police cars came from everywhere and went in rounding up students and questioning them to find out what their allegiances were, whether they'd been involved in any of the moratorium. And that left the students in a very anti-establishment area, and they started growing beards. It was the only thing you could do. No one could afford much more. We couldn't even afford new uniforms. The first year of the uni, the university paid for the uniforms for all the clubs that were formed. So someone designed a white one with a red V on it, and then after the first year, you had to pay for your own uniforms. And it was a difficulty finding someone to make shirts for poor students. We finally got them made for $1.50 each in around about 72. And we felt really good because we had new shirts on, whereas the guys before were still in tatters. They should have. Anyway, I came along in 72, and the club was fairly radical at the time. But they did exactly what we did when you came along. Came along in enrolment, found the tent that had hockey in it, said, I'm here to play hockey. What's your name? Da da da. Can you afford to pay the fees? How much are they? $3? Yep. I can pay those fees. Have you got any hockey gear with you? No. Would you like a game this afternoon? If you can find some hockey gear. So I played indoor hockey on the first day that I joined the club, and it was I didn't realise it at the time, but the club was going for the record for the most continuous hockey indoor hockey played, and it made it to the Herald Sun, or probably it was the Herald and the Sun in those days. Boys at Latrobe break record for the longest possible indoor game. No one actually knew what the record was, but they kept.
This is at the Sports Centre?
At the Sports Centre. The one thing we did have was a good indoor hockey field in the Sports Centre. Yeah. And so most of the really effective training was done there. So that was my first day, first introduction to hockey. I met a few of the characters that were there. Found one of them was the president, Marty Broadhurst, a very solid player. He was in his second year. So in his second year at hockey, he became the president of the club. When came time for the first training, I went down to the hockey fields. No one was there. I sat down underneath the rugby trainer that they had there, and along came another first year. It was Bob Peebles, and we got to talking. He was doing a course that was similar to mine, and I asked him what it was he there for. He said, I'm here to play in the first and get the best and fairest this year. I looked at him and said, I thought to myself, smart ass. Well, I'm here to play in any team they put me in, and that came true too.
So this is the lower playing fields?
Lower playing fields.
Yeah, the concrete block.
Concrete block, exactly.
Do you have light towers?
As you know, they had a light tower. Yeah. And at that stage of the season, there was no mud. They looked really good.
And there was club rooms?
No club rooms. There were club rooms, but they were completely held over for the cricket and the football. Everybody else sort of went without. But Bob got into the first from the word go, won the Puller Shield for best and fairest at the end of that year, and went on to become the president of Hockey Victoria. And I I got to know him really well because we shared a house together in Lower Plenty. So, and we're still good friends right up till today. The season started off, or the training started off for that matter, and I'm jogging around with everybody. We had to do 4 laps of the whole of the lower playing field. The coach was Doug Henderson, and I'm trying to keep up with the rest, and also I heard these footsteps up behind me. Ross, you'll never make a good hockey player if you don't swing your arms, swing them backwards and forwards.
And that was the coach.
And then he ran on to the next guy and ran on to the next one.
He was the fittest player.
He was the fittest player. He was one of the best players.
Because he coached us later on in the 90s.
Yeah, that's right.
And he did the same thing. He'd run around the ring road, but he'd be passing everybody except Michael Ross.
He was just a gentleman all the way through. But he had certain standards you had to meet. One was fitness. He believed if players could get fit, our players, they could do anything. They could get up. And he got them up to State 2 in a matter of 4 years. And which was an excellent effort because some of the guys were hard to get on with. They would get into more fights on the field than you could imagine. And it was at a time when I don't think the umpires had cards. I don't think the umpires had names. They were called names, I'm sure. I never knew what they were. Anyway, that's my first year, went through. I played in B Northwest, which wasn't a bad grade. I think it was the seconds. It was a good year. I enjoyed it all the way through. I was too poor to go to the annual dinner. Which I didn't go to the annual dinner for 3 years.
Which is something that stayed in your mind for many years.
It did.
Yes.
It left a blank shot for me. I think it was because you had to wear a tie. I don't think I owned a tie.
But to this day, you still help other students go to the presentation.
No, that's one of the things I try to ask myself. What would I have liked to have had at that age?
So was that InterVarsity a big thing in the first year you started? Was that something that was...
Yeah, you would find at that stage most of the unit students that were in the first, it was made up of students basically, and most of them went to InterVarsity. So to get into the InterVarsity side, you had to be bloody good. They didn't hold trials. They knew, the club was so small, they knew who to pick, and it was just making sure they got there. But it was a big thing. I don't know how many people understand how much the extra games we played kept us fit, kept us going. And that was playing in the Moomba Carnival, the Albury-Wodonga Carnival. We played down at Portsea on the Army grounds there. We went to various carnivals and we played indoors as well as trained indoors. There was a lot of hockey. That more than anything else kept people fit, I think. But we had a couple of players in the first who were ultra fit. Sufferbin Din Hashan. I remember seeing him at that first training. Who's that guy there? He was running along, doing front lifts with his legs like a Nazi paratrooper, going chunk chunk chunk, and he had muscles like this. It was incredible. And he got into the Australian uni side, and he was a great player. And I must say that the one thing that was really hard was that we would play away when the first team were playing at home. So we didn't get to see them all that much.
So it was Saturday games, 1:30 and 3:30 Saturday?
Yeah, on the grass. It wasn't until almost halfway through the decade that I realised there were women playing in the other weekends with us. And about then, because grounds started to get a bit desperate to be played on, we broke that cycle and we suddenly started playing as the seconds and watching the first and filling in for them. Hockey was different in the early days, I will say. When we had a 12th man for interchange, they could only have him once in the game.
Yes.
And only when the player was injured. You just couldn't just swap players. You had to bring an injured player off. He had to be carried off, generally. And then they would substitute a player on. So a lot of people that were 12th men just went and watched the hockey for a long time. In 73, 74, we won the F Troop Grand Final, and I was 12th man for that. I didn't get to play because nobody nobody got injured. Nowadays we'd probably fling a medallion to the 12th man, even if they didn't play. So being 12th man wasn't much good to you.
No. But there were strange rules back then, wasn't it? We'd roll the ball in from the sideline or something? We used our hands a lot.
We had
stop the ball.
A 7 metre line, I think, in parallel. We used to call them the train tracks or tram tracks. Instead of having a free hit for a ball going out, we had a roll. And you played like bowls. You came down your bowl, and if you're really good, you could get right down the tram track and then just break into the playing field just right on the bottom end. And players were running after the ball.
If you actually rolled it directly to one of your players, you were then penalised.
That's right.
So
had to actually look as though it wasn't going to someone.
Yeah.
Hockey, I would say one thing, and this is a general thing for over the years, has tried harder and harder and harder to become more attractive to the players and spectators. It's a much higher scoring game now. It's much more fun not having to worry about offside and being called offside by an umpire you know is lying through his back teeth because you haven't stepped that 1 inch over the line. The corner rules were very different. They changed almost every year, whether you stop the ball outside the circle, inside the circle, with your hand, without your hand. It was a hard rule to keep up with. But they got rid of that, made it pretty straightforward. And I think it's making it a more attractive game. But back in those days, you took what you got. We had some really good times right through the 70s, my first year.
Because the club would have, in the mid-70s, begun the planning for InterVarsity in 77, because they hosted, didn't they?
We were nominated for it back in 70-71, and we formed a committee which worked hard on it, but it wasn't until almost 2 years beforehand that they really got going. But some guys devoted a lot of time lining up sponsors, getting TAA to agree to discount the fares for everybody flying in. Had to find another brewery other than Carlton United. We found Courage to give us plenty of free beer, or very cheap beer, to say the least. But to get the grounds all made out, get all the programs done, the social organisation.
A lot of work. Were all the games held at La Trobe?
They were. Grounds were fabulous.
So where did we finish in IV in that year?
Probably last. I do have the record somewhere.
We thought hosting it, we might have got in the top 4.
Well, the point was that a lot of the guys that were organising it were no longer at uni. And a lot of the first players that had gone on. That's why I got to my first IV hat, was going along to the 77 IV. Plus, because there were so few of us, we all had to work carrying food around, setting up for functions. You finish a game and everyone goes, oh great, okay, right, now we're going to go off and organise something and get something in place.
Because every night there would have been a function.
Every night there was a function.
A band or...
And what's more, not only did we have winter IV that year, we had summer IV the following summer. And summer IV was made up of the southern states, including ANU. And there were 7 unis turned up, and we ran it like an IV.
Over a few days?
Over a few days, but a little bit more free in how we behaved. It was one of the times when we had the great burning of the hockey sticks, where one night after we were sitting around drinking a beer, this is all the unis together, and someone said, it's about time we got rid of these bloody sticks, and threw it in the campfire we had. Next thing is a shower of sticks into the fire, which was all okay until the next day when we had to play hockey. There were people going, can I borrow your stick? Well, as long as you don't throw it in the campfire.
So did the first win many flags in the 70s? Were
they won one in 74, but what they did was they got up and held up in State 2. Dropped out of it 1 year and then went straight back up again. It was a good position to be in, but the players got a little bit tired of it, I think. The players that had kept us there were going off to have families. A lot of them were getting jobs interstate, overseas. So we ended up having a lot of people scattered everywhere in the world, which was good. So we came to the last game for the 79, and it was the last game in State 2. I won the best and fairest in seconds that year. I must say, I found that out the other day. I found a trophy, looked at it, and said, I got best and
Were
fairest.
you goalkeeper then? Was that when you were playing goalkeeper or you were on the field?
I was on the field. Anyway, we turned up to watch Latrobe play Old Scotch. Old Scotch were top of the ladder. Latrobe was bottom of the ladder. Old Scotch went on and won the premiership and went up to State 1. Latrobe got relegated. But we turned up to the game to watch it, the group of us from the seconds, and about 4 or 5 guys didn't turn up for the first. That shows you how they were feeling, the pits. So the guys looked at us and said, because we'd already played a game and got very drunk, and we turned up and we said, oh yeah, we'll play, but we had no gear. So I've got a photo of the gear they found for me, different sort of shorts, pair of running shoes about like clowns things.
This is a State League 2 game.
Yeah. And we had a number scratched on our back.
Goodness me.
And we went out there and we had the guy who, I can't believe I got best and fairest in the seconds, because he guy would have beaten me hands down, Bill McGlynn. Bill hit 5 goals, threw up after every one of them in the goalkeeper's area. Goalkeeper complained about this fellow throwing up in front of him all the time. And we played the game as the way we've been playing it. Pass it, call, move.
The true gunner spirit,
and
playing on regardless of the conditions.
And we won, 5-1. But it was too late. We were relegated and we stayed that way for a long time.
Well, that was the era of the decline, wasn't it?
That's when we slid downwards down to State 4.
Yeah, it was. That's when I joined when you were in State 4. We actually that year, I think we were in relegation zone again, second or second last.
So up to about 1980.
And then that's when we recruited Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin.
And by then the recruiting strategy had kicked in with some of the local schools. And people like Pat Burke and Charlie and Morris had started.
I went down there to help umpire with Marty Broadhurst, and we spent almost a season down there talking our way into it. And by the way, boys, to the kids in Year 12, not realising that younger ones were listening in as well, if you come and play at Latrobe, it's really, really good. Oh, we drink like fishermen. Which is why pictures of Pat Burke are there all the way. I think Pat was in paradise. He couldn't drink at home, but he could have a drink with us.
Because in those days, all of the drinks were just long neck beers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there was no light beers either.
No. We wouldn't have any of that in the club room. The first year that I was in the club, in 1980, we went through 300 dozen of those long neck beers.
So we picked up the little room at the back of the club rooms, which was the umpire's change room or something. So that became the hockey club room. Yeah.
And it served its purpose really well for a long time, I thought. But I think we could have all done with a bit more comfort in life. And
I think we all did a lot of growing up in that club room. Spent a lot of time there in the 80s.
Yeah. There were some long nights after hockey training.
We had a ball or a dance or something the night before, and I rocked up with our erstwhile president, Daryl Nielsen, and we had the biggest headaches under the sun. But Kevin wasn't going to accept this. You get out there and play. Yes. So we went out there and we played as hard as we could. And got at half time and Daryl said, I can't stand this any longer, my head's falling off my shoulders. So come, let's go to the first aid tent. They should have had some at least Panadol or something like that. So we went over there. Husband and wife pair said, oh no, poor boys, headaches, no. I should go Panadol here. And how do you think you got this headache? Said to Daryl. Daryl said, oh, I probably drank too much last night. That's it, self-inflicted wounds, you're not going to get anything. And her husband had to plead to allow us to have a Panadol. We went back and we were not allowed off that field. There was we had plenty of interchanges. Kevin was not going to let us go. We had to learn our lesson. We learned our lesson all right. There was a social side to the club always. It was really good. when I started off, it was very all malish, and the only females that were involved happened to share the house of certain people. And
so, Ross, were the women in just a separate, different club? Was it?
A separate club completely.
Separate club.
The only thing we shared were the fields, and they were on alternate weekends. The only interaction came from became stronger as the year went on, as the decade went on. Was those blokes that had sisters that played hockey, and we got to know them. But it did get to the point where we were serious about amalgamation, or a number of us were. And the club had a plebiscite on the whole thing, and it started off with debates, and the debate was going really well. Why should we not be with women? Until one guy said, "Well, would any of you guys let a woman be a president?" Oh no, and that was the end of it. It never became an amalgamated fact until you guys had been there for quite some time.
Yes. Well, I vividly remember the 40th anniversary that we held, and Tammy was the first woman president of the combined club.
So that's 2007.
Yes, 2007, and she got up there, and this was really accepted by all of the old male players. It's just a fantastic move forward.
And it has been one of the best things that's occurred in the club. It's made it into a true club. But we, every second name there had a sister who played hockey, and people couldn't see any reason why we shouldn't join up.
Because it was certainly very social. When I started in the early 80s, there was a lot of interaction between the men and the women. From 79 onwards, because more and more people became closer and closer with the female side, on an organisational basis, the first thing to happen was the combined dribble in 1979 or 1980.
It could have been before 1980. I remember doing the 1981 with Kathy.
With Kathy, yep. And that started amalgamating, and it started looking silly having two presidents' pages. And by the way, the women were doing really well playing hockey. They were winning premierships and not getting the support until, I think, Peter, you were one of the first people to go over and help coach.
I went over and helped coach, you're right. But they, like the men, moved on with a number of women retiring and so on, the older brigade, if you like, Ben Dixon Ward and so on. Of course, they then folded, and it probably was only after Craig really pushing for the resurgence in the intervarsity that they then started to
87, 88, 89, and I think one club joined in about 1990, 91.
Yeah,
I think it's when one club started.
Yeah, so they folded and then came back on, which was great.
Which I think is wonderful. You look at it now, I don't think you could ever imagine there hasn't been a women's side there wearing the same colours and.
And there's been the occasional mixed competition, usually in summer, but that is evolved probably more in the latter part of the club's history.
So we went from probably 2 or 3 teams in the very early 80s to very quickly 4 to 5 teams by the mid 80s.
Yes, and the teams who were arriving seemed to be arriving almost mid-season if there was a call for it. Yeah.
So before we leave the 70s and 80s, do you remember when we moved from the white strip with the red V to the red strip with white sleeves?
Yeah.
Was that in the mid-70s?
It was in the mid-70s. The reason was we were wearing the Arsenal colours, and Arsenal changed to a red shirt with white sleeves.
Okay. So how did we get to use the cannon on the link with Arsenal?
What happened was someone decided to write officially from the club to the Arsenal Footy Club saying we're a little tin pot hockey team down in Australia, and we'd love to use the cannon because we've got your colours and we want to use the cannon, but we don't want to offend you or put you out. And this fellow wrote back to him, secretary of the Arsenal Football Club, saying,
fill your boots. You're no threat to us as a hockey club. We're good to see other people taking up our emblems and showing on. Keep calling yourself the Gunners, and you've got our backing. And this came back to the club. I don't think any first-rate sporting club in the world would give away its IP like that so easily.
So were we always called the Gunners?
From my memory, we were. Yeah. From 72 onwards, we certainly were. But
so the search goes on for the famous letter from.
The famous letter. Lunch with Bob Peebles, not so long ago. I said, Bob, where's the letter? Bob was secretary of the club when this happened. And he said, I've searched for it everywhere, but to tell you the truth, I shifted from a house in Rosanna in 12 years ago. It was a long time ago now. He said, I think it was in one of the cardboard boxes under the house. Do you think it's still there? I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be. I would have thrown it out if I was in there. I thought, okay. But I have heard other people say that they have seen the letter or have seen a copy of it. And I have never seen a copy of it. In fact, I was secretary for 2 years in the middle 70s, and I don't think I saw any documentation whatsoever. They were like,
so how did you get to wear goalkeeping pads?
Yeah, I knew this would come up.
So there's that photo of you diving in the goals they look like cricket pads.
In 77, they were cricket pads. We used to have selection on Thursday nights, which meant you had to go somewhere or ring someone and find out what team you were in. And teams were rather volatile, what position you were playing in. Jim Taylor was the captain of my team at the time. And he said to me, I said, look, Jim, I've got to get going. I can't stick around after for selection. I've got to go. I've got to get something else on. He said, where do you want to play? I said, look, I don't care. Give me the pads. I'll play in goals. So I got to the game on Saturday, and some pair of pads and a couple of very moth-eaten kickers were given to me, and said if I cared to reach into the bag, I might find a box that would fit me. And I said, you're kidding. They said, you said, give me the pads, you're playing goals. They played in goals. So I did that for a couple of seasons, but the good thing in those days that you could play in goals for one team and then play on the field for another. So I probably doubled up on a lot of games though through that period. I didn't mind playing in goals. The absolutely different dimension of the ground you're looking at. There's 10 players between you and the ball. Somehow it gets through. It's 10 players' fault. It's never your fault.
Yeah, it's whatever. Ross, you were going back to the. You were going to give us a figure on the number of games that you think you might play. So, how many games do you think you've played for Latrobe, and how many games do you think you've played in your life? Maybe
I had to make some assumptions.
Yes.
So I came to 967 plus 124 my summer game. And I counted in varsities because
that's fine
because they were the championship. Played the full time, and I played 5 intervarsities and 2 summer intervarsities. So they came out to 35 for winter, 8 for summer. That's 163 games. They came to 1,137 games. What I didn't include were the games I played for Victoria. There were I was in 2 championships. Yeah. So I haven't included those.
Yeah. So we're probably looking around somewhere between 1,100 and 1,300 games for Latrobe.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, it's a lot of games.
A few goals you've scored in that time as well?
I'm not a prolific goal scorer, but the
100 or so, wouldn't it, Ross?
Oh, yeah.
What's your record per game? You've got 3 goals a number of times?
I got 3 goals in this one. George Bruce. I actually got 15 goals for the year.
In 2003.
2003.
Yeah.
And in that year, the Vets had 6 out of the top 10 goal scorers.
Of which you were one of them.
Of which I was one of them.
And the other thing is, Ross, some premierships. What do you reckon for that?
Oh, premierships. I'm a bit closer on that. I had 10 plus.
10 plus.
Minimum of 10.
And Ross, now this is a difficult one. You would have played in some great sides for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
Give us a couple of teams that you think are memorable.
Personally, and I'm sure you would too, I played in the team for summer hockey at Latrobe, the half field ones, about 4 years ago, and we won. And that was with William and my two daughters playing in the same team.
Oh, wow.
And my youngest daughter got the 2 goals that won us the game. And that was with Morris Davoli turning up to play with us.
Yeah.
But that was a big thrill for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't the first time I'd played with one or other of my children.
Yeah.
William was it.
What about
but really,
the open season and Masters type thing?
Okay, in Masters, the very first season.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Very first season, if you look at our results on that, we won every point there was to win.
Yeah.
We won 18 matches. We won both finals.
Yes.
We were in. We won one of those. Grand final was 5-0. The semi-final was 6-0. That was that year then.
2003.
Yeah, that was a great year, wasn't it?
It was a great year, and I think we had a great spirit.
Yeah. And also,
it was a good feel for it, and we were all thinking this is going to be a blow over, easy getting through.
Yeah.
Forgetting we were in D grade.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
We don't need to mention we were in D grade.
No, but I think
start somewhere, didn't you?
Because I played with you that game, and that season. And I remember I put the word out at the beginning of the season, and instantly we had the thing, and we actually put it in. I agree with you. I think that was a great year for the Masters. What about open age Saturdays and Sundays?
We played back-to-back premiers, and we lost 3 games in 2 years. That was
yep. Now, is that the one with Guru Madan?
That's the one with Guru
Madan. That's right. Do you remember that game, Ross, at Altona with the pouring rain? Do you remember?
I can never forget.
It wasn't that a fantastic? That was a couple of great.
It always rained at that
We won that game and
we had no fools on the side though.
I've got to say, and it was we were really in trouble, and it pelted down rain.
And we used the water.
I got to say, and I just smashed. I remember smashing the ball as hard as I could down the other end of the ground. And it came to a screaming halt.
The goalie overran it, and Clive went in and just clocked it.
Clive Norrie called it. Was
so this is in the seconds or thirds?
That was the thirds. Ross and I are in the thirds. That thing, and we won that premiership.
Yeah, there's so many good games where we came off and said, "Gee, that was special." Not necessarily I did anything special, but other people.
The other team that I thought that you might is the one where the army guy got up at half time when you were losing in the grand final.
That was,
stood on the seat in that dugout and
gave us leadership 101. Look at me! What are you out there for? You're out there to enjoy yourself? No, you're out there to win a grand final. Get off your asses! Get out there! Go! And he was this meek, mild little army lieutenant. Can't go down. We all went, oh shit, okay, well, better go out there and bang, 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 bang.
We won the grand final.
Won the grand final.
I really remember it.
There's one game, Pete, I can't quite recall what grade we were in, but we were playing at Geelong, and we were short, and Geelong was getting on top of us, and one of their guys had a go at the umpire. Their umpire sent him off. He went off the field but refused to leave the stadium. And the umpire said, right, who's the captain? Yeah, you're off too. Red card. Oh, you lose. And he whittled them down to the point where we came through and burst through.
Vividly remember it. That's great.
It was just fabulous. I mean, that's magic.
I vividly remember the game.
Don't know how you do that.
I was going to say, he carded whatever, and he was going to keep going until the guy did it. He was nearly up to the third one.
I remember, Pete, you would run up the wing. because the wings seemed to have the nicest, grassiest bits. I'd wade through the mud as fast as I could to get there. The umpire, the goalie would come out at you. You'd hit the ball with one of your special whacks, and would fly past the goalkeeper and then stop dead. and I'd just flick it into the net. It's, I think that some of the games we played in the Handsoms were really good games. We played together as a team. The spirit was there. If you talk about the spirit of the team. In fact, if there's any bad spirit, it was against our beloved leader, because he was visually getting sent off when we didn't want him to get sent off.
Yes, it's always good at that. Yeah.
But we had some good games, I think, over the last 10 years.
Absolutely.
One of the great things, though, Ross, that you're talking about is, and I think has been one of the major great changes for Latrobe, is it's almost cradle to grave.
Yeah.
The fact that we're
going to have to pay superannuation soon.
That we had we've got a very active and strong junior, and calling on the local community, which is great. And you talked about in the earlier era when these older players at Latrobe in the 70s and early 80s would move on. There was nothing for them to do. Now coming through onto the Masters, you can play at various levels, 35, 45 and 50. And so, and
60 if we had a team.
Well, we
probably will, because no one's giving up. And that's
already.
probably one of the great things that I'm finding. And I thought it might only be our era, but looking at the 35s and the strength in that group there, I can see them going through. So that's been one of the major things that I've really liked about Latrobe. And
I really drew inspiration, by the way. I can't have a session like this without putting it down, with Jack Smart. I know none of you guys would have met him, but he was a superb hockey player. He had a uni blue from Oxford for it. He had a uni blue for cricket as well. He had a companion of the Order of Australia, all that. But he was just such a great guy to talk to and look at. He analysed sport. Nowadays it wouldn't seem so strange, but in his day, philosophy was all about the higher things in life, the better good, poetry, opera. Jack believed in sport. He said, I think sport's one of the greatest goods, and I think we've got to analyse sport, and we will get a lot of philosophical. And he wrote papers and he wrote books and what have you. But he was a lovely guy to talk to. He as an academic, he would think, as a professor, he would think nothing of stopping your class to ask you what were the scores on the weekend and how are we going and what do you think is going to be. He waxed lyrical, and the young tutors and that would.
So, Ross, he's one person. Who else? Some people that you think have probably have had an impact on you, or in terms of the club.
Look at Ken Parkin. He was his way of life seems so strange to us all, but he was almost the purest hockey person. That was what his life was for, and he had different circumstances to almost everybody else. He designed it so he could keep going the way he was. I think that I've been terribly lucky in that I chose to stay with Latrobe rather than move off permanently to other clubs. And I was so pleased I did, because I came back into it at the vet level, not only knowing most of the people in the team, but not knowing the other guys, but getting to know them really well. We've had lots of people come in through the vets, and some whose calibre isn't great as a hockey player, but I admire the fact that they want to do it. They take it on. You talked before about how we're under good leadership and we've got a good thing going with juniors. I think thereby lies our greatest threat. I mean, I can't speak enough about how juniors feed into seniors and how good juniors become excellent seniors. And we're dependent on getting people through the uni system for that. But in the future we'll have the chance to get them out of the junior side as well. But if we
because this year we've introduced a student scholarship named
Yeah.
after yourself.
I saw the ad in the press stations. Anyone out there interested?
There will be someone. It's a fantastic initiative the club's put on, and
I
very
think
fitting your name associated with it.
I'd rather have them put your name on a brand new club room with overlooking our brand new fields.
That'll come.
That'll come.
We'll
That'll
get there.
come.
We'll get there.
We're sort of coming to the end, Ross, and it's been really fantastic. Where do you see us as a hockey club at Latrobe?
I can't remember where I read it. It's in one of these dribbles where someone did an analysis of where, not only where they were in coming into State 3 to State 2, but looking at all the other teams that have gone into State 3, State 2 from State 3 and from State 2 upwards. And the argument was that, look at these sample clubs that went up and came down, went up and came down. Melbourne Uni went to State League 1. Every second year for about a decade, they kept getting knocked out. They might win 1 or 2 games. They could never quite make it in. But the point is that it is possible to do it. We shouldn't put ourselves down. We should aspire to do it. I think we'll all bend over backwards in the reflected glory of the team that goes through.
So we push on into.
I think we can do it, and we've got to help them do it.
Yeah.
It's a combination of things, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're on the table at the Sports Association during orientation week, and a student walks up to you and says, "Look, I'm thinking of joining Latrobe." What would you say? What sorts of things?
Best move you've ever made, son.
We could go on for hours and hours. I'm
You're
sure.
going to say.
I think we could. Maybe
Let's put the kettle on and we'll.
Well, I can do that.
Because Zach said, "Oh, you're going to film." I said, "Have you seen our faces before?"